So this is just sort of an example of the types of things that you would expect to see within that integration. And one of the things that's critical is that the two systems have access to the metadata within each other's systems. So once a document, and the examples that I'm using here are just ECTD Manager and LiveLink, but it should appear very, very similar regardless of what systems you're using. You have access to things like the underlying object ID within the system, the version, the life cycle state of that document. Is it draft? Is it approved? And it's critical, again, that these things are displayed within the publishing system. Obviously, they're displayed within the content management system because they are, in fact, content management attributes at this point that the publishing system is trying to leverage. So you want to be able to see that object ID. Here's a little screenshot of the metadata within the content management system managing the attribute metadata within the publishing system. This is one of those things that as you move further and further into publishing, especially to multiple regions simultaneously, just becomes critical. This type of awareness and visibility into the metadata of the two different systems. It's also fairly important that within this integration, multiple methods of adding documents into a submission are supported. And there's a number of different reasons for this. It may be that within the publishing system, you think in those terms. You think in terms of what an ECTD looks like, and you go to the content management system in order to get the particular document that you need, literature references, talk studies, quality overall summaries. But it may also be that you think actually in terms of groups of those contents, of an M5, 4, you have it built, and you want to be able to bring in all of those documents simultaneously. So you need to be able to, in some cases, search for those documents within the content management system, get a result list of that search, and drag and drop many, many documents into the system at one time. Sorry, this is not drag and drop. This is actually selecting multiple documents, saying OK, and letting those multiple documents be brought into the system. So this is an example of starting within the publishing system, browsing the content management system, and being able to add single or multiple documents. You do, however, want to also be able equally to drag and drop. So here we have LiveLink open. I've selected a couple of documents. I've dropped them into a location, and those documents will be immediately added. This could have been the result of a search within the content management system. It could have been the result of actually navigating to a specific location, knowing where those documents are, and being able to add them. It's also nice if you can edit the documents from within the publishing system, not have to go to the content management system. This, of course, is all based upon, or should be based upon, a permission set. So as a user of the content management system, if you don't have permission to do this, then you are not going to be able to get to a document. The publishing system should not provide you with a backdoor into the system. You can see, however, if that document was checked out, versioned, and re-added, that that new version of the document is now reflected, within the publishing system. You need some ability for paper publishing as well. You need to be able to add tables of contents to documents, regardless of whether or not they're going to be paper or electronic submissions, because you want to be able to manage that with as few mouse clicks as possible. The ability to add publishing effects within the system should be critical. You will still be doing more paper-based publishing than you'd like to believe that you will. So you want to be able to volumize, put headers and footers, that sort of thing onto the documents. Just run through kind of these integration tips fairly quickly. So first and foremost, some of the things you need to consider within the EDMS selection. If you already have one, that ship has sailed, then you're just looking for a smooth integration with the publishing system. But if you're starting from scratch, are your users all local in one place, or is more the case in today's virtual world, they're global? Are you looking for an in-house or a hosted solution? This fourth bullet point is probably the most critical one. I'll come back to that. And the effect on the current work process. Is the organization small enough and reactive enough that it can onboard a lot of change, or does it need to closely mirror the system? This point around whether or not you're primarily an R&D company or whether or not you're GMP is just hugely impactful on the EDMS system that you manage. The requirements of those two sides of the house are very, very different. And if you have both sides of the house, it is always a struggle to accommodate both of them in that selection process. Within the publishing tool, you need to be aware of whether or not you will be primarily focused on paper or electronic output, because in fact you will be doing both of them. Do you have submissions that have already been done, or do you have a clean slate, a green field, and you're starting initially? How many products are in the pipeline, and whether or not they're going to be CDER, CBER, CDRH types of submissions? Exit strategy for smaller, usually biotech organizations is fairly critical. Do you intend to sell off the product, and at what point, phase 2, phase 3, final approval? How will you deliver the content to whoever you sell it to? What are your current resources, which ties into IT infrastructure? How are you going to be able to onboard a hosted system versus an in-house system? Is this your first Part 11 compliant system, which means validation of the network, or at least qualification should take place? Number of subsets of all these variables, far more than we can go into in 30 minutes. The validation process is, of course, critical to all of this, and as you begin to look at your validation methodology, you have to study your whether or not you have an internal quality department, how aggressive they will be in involvement in this. Again, is this your first Part 11 compliant system going in? Do you have other validated systems within house? Do you have experience validating them? Do you have all the time in the world to get it validated, or do you have 90 days to do it? And ongoing support. And what I mean by that is, as new releases, new versions of the operating systems, the support systems, and the applications themselves come out, will you have the resources to do that type of validation? Will you need to look at having someone do that validation for you? Scalability, very, very critical. You do not want to buy a system that works for one publisher and one document control clerk, knowing that next year you're going to quadruple the size of the organization, but you haven't built into the system any insight into that sort of scalability. Of course, that has to be measured against cost. What is realistically affordable today against those future development plans? And finally, a case study. So this was a mid-sized, they still are, frankly, a mid-sized biotech here in the Bay Area. I'm located in San Francisco. About 250 employees currently had in place a fully validated EDMS. In their case, it was live-linked. They wanted to do an IND electronically in less than 6 months. Almost all of the content was already in LiveLink, properly under control. Of course, last-minute documents are still coming in. It was critical to them. They understood that all the document lifecycle must occur within the EDMS itself. Any edits, any changes, anything that occurred to the document would occur within the EDMS, and a strong desire to bring the submission process in-house. They hired people in their regulatory department with strong publishing expertise so that they would have this skill set in-house at all times. Key requirement, of course, was that integration between the two systems. They already had a huge investment in their LiveLink system. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of time for some questions here, Diane, so I'll just finish up this last slide very quickly. The process, as is normal in this type of selection process, is to bring it down to a couple of vendors. Strongly recommend that you do this pilot, especially when you are integrating with an established content management system. You really want to see how that integration works. If you're going to be doing a lot of paper, you want to be testing that, and then finally bringing the system up and going live with it.